You are looking live at Boone, North Carolina. It is January the 3rd, 2022, and we are covering our first snowstorm of the season. I am James Brierton from our HQ in Charlotte. We're going to be looking at snow totals across the area in just a few moments, so hit us up in the comments right now. Let us know how much snow you saw or potentially how disappointed you were that you didn't see snow. We'll also be talking about the flood threat, the wind threat, and the tornadic threat that occurred with the same system overnight. But let's start with the snow. The first snowstorm of 2022. Back with us live now from Boone, we have Dylan Hudler and Scotty Powell, who have been spending most of the night, guys, out chasing this snow in the North Carolina high country. But you set yourselves up for a guaranteed snowstorm. But I think the headline today is just how far down the elevation into the foothills the snow came. So what did you guys see up there in Boone?
Well, James, thank you. We saw a lot of snow. We had a long night last night. Didn't get much sleep. Started off with some heavy rain, some nasty windy conditions this morning, transitioned to snow, and it has been dumping ever since. It just stopped a couple hours ago. But last night we saw talks and thunder snow in Alabama and portions to our south as this system tracked up to the northeast, closer to the Carolinas. And there were rumblings that it was overachieving, producing more snow than is expected. And here in the mountains and higher elevations, we got about what was expected, but maybe to the east of us in the Piedmont, got a little bit more than expected.
Yeah, a general rule of thumb right now for the mountains is anywhere between 4 to 7 inches. We made it up to Banner Elk, measured 7 inches. We're here actually beside App State football field right now, and it's about 5 inches of snow on the ground. Dylan, the transition really happened quickly. We woke up at 5 o'clock. It was still raining. By the time we got dressed, got everything ready to go, we were walking out the door at 6, and those snowflakes really started to come down. Mm-hmm. And I would say within an hour, the ground was covered, and it was snow covered. Roads were covered. Conditions were really going downhill quickly. A lot of, as you can see here, the snowplow that was going up on Beach Mountain. I mean, snowplows were getting stuck. So it was very dangerous this morning. But once the sun came up, a little bit of the radiation from the sun, the heat really started to help melt at least the roadways. The roads are pretty good now. Some of the secondary roads still snow covered, but I would say from 6 o'clock to about 10 o'clock, Evan, it was pretty wintry up here.
Yeah, it was for sure. I was surprised with how quickly the snow stuck to the roads and started accumulating. And like Scotty said, it just snapped with the snap of a finger. It was transitioned all the way from rain to full on snow, and it being nighttime, you're just relying on your headlights. The visibility is really low with that blinding snow, heavy snowfall rates coming down right on your windshield. And it was touch and go there for a minute. The travel conditions were pretty hazardous. Just as we were coming back from Banner Elk and some of the higher elevations back into Boone, we saw a couple semi trucks and cars on the side of the road that were stranded and would need to be towed out by a tow truck later. But I think conditions are starting to improve as the sun has come up. Like you said, more people are getting out and about and venturing out. And I think that's helping to warm the roads up and just kind of, mix all of this snow and water, sleet, all the mix up and make it more of a slush rather than a coating of snow. So conditions are improving, but still a little bit nasty out here for travel.
Yeah. And Evan was up in the Rome Mountain area. And I believe they said last we reported from them, I think Evan was supposed to join the show. They were a little bit more up in elevation, and they saw more wind and more snow. I think the last report earlier too. Yeah, I think the last report from him, from what we saw on Twitter, it was really sketchy up there. So
he said horrendous conditions.
Yeah, and it was kind of sketchy early this morning for us when we were out. When the sun was still, when the sun wasn't out. But another thing, Dylan, that we saw is how heavy the snow is. We've seen some trees start to really become weighed down from this. So I wouldn't be shocked. It's still windy up here with that heavy snow on the trees. We could see some power outages probably up in this area.
Trees down needing to be cleared.
Trees down and stuff like that. So I don't think all the issues are over. I mean, the temperature is 27 degrees, so it's still below freezing. There'll definitely be a refreeze up here as well tonight. But we saw it pretty bad. I think where Evan was at up in the mountains up at Rowan, it was maybe a little bit worse.
Yeah.
But it was still kind of hairy where we were. And we also got to cash in on some thunder snow.
Yeah, we did. Two times back to back within a span of maybe 15 minutes. as we were headed up Beach Mountain. We saw the flashes of lightning and experienced the thunder snow for the first time for me personally. And Scotty and I both got to check that off our bucket list. So that was one of our goals coming into it. And we were talking with Jim Cantori and wishing he could be up here with us, but we checked all the boxes and had a great time.
Yeah, I think the first flash was like 7:10, 7:15.
Right after 7 o'clock.
So it was still dark. So you saw that flash
really
in the sky.
bright.
You're like, oh crap. And then
we got really excited.
Yeah, about 5-10 minutes later, we saw another one too. So, but yeah, overall, I mean, it's been a great trip, a fun trip.
It was
successful trip. And, a lot of talk up here in the mountains. A lot of folks are happy to see the snow because it's going to bring tourists up. It's going to bring skiers up to the ski slopes. We were at a restaurant earlier in Banner Elk, and they was like, they were excited to see the snow. So I think overall, I know it's been kind of crazy in the Piedmont and the coastal plain with severe weather and flooding, but the snow threat up here it's been pretty good for everyone. So.
Yeah, let's take a quick look around at some live cameras across the area right now. A lot of them showing what looks to be whiteout conditions, but really it's just the snow covering the lens here on the resort cam in Banner Elk where you guys are earlier. Matter of fact, the camera right there where you guys are parked at App State in Boone is also kind of got a layer of ice and snow over it. But as the Banner Elk camera turns now, you can see the slopes there. But again, the headline with this storm, in addition to that severe threat that was on the back end of this, is the fact that there are places snowing that don't always see snow. So let's take you out live here, folks, to NC State in Raleigh, where the snow is coming down right now at 12:45. You can see it's not sticking to the roadways. It's not sticking on the grass, but those are most certainly snowflakes falling on the sky. And as we take you out to live radar now at 12:45, you can see where the snow is falling. Based on radar interpretation, it's more or less coming down the interstate here and then kind of looping just south of the Raleigh area. And thanks to all of your reports that are being submitted via MPing, we can tell not only what the radar is seeing, but we can actually see right on in here people on the ground confirming for us that they are in fact seeing snow, just like this camera is showing us. So those MPing reports are highly important because the radar is scanning in the upper atmosphere. So while it might show snow in some places that really is experiencing rain down at the surface because of the melting, your MPing reports help us get that ground truth. And that's what we were seeing all across kind of guys, we were debating just right up to last night whether or not we would get snow down that I-40 corridor, and more or less it seems like we did manage to get some snow, Dylan and Scotty, in that corridor. So I think I owe somebody a few bucks because it snowed in Greensboro.
It did snow in Greensboro. We got snow reports we were seeing on Twitter all morning with the local news agencies. Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, Kernersville, the Triad, all those locations. While it may have only been a little bit, may have been a dusting, and it didn't stick for long, and I'm sure it'll melt before the days ended with the sun and some clearing. But it was fun to see. They still got some.
Yeah, Wes Grimes, friend of Carolina Weather Group, he was up here with us, and his wife was sending him videos of snowfall in there in his area, just outside of between Winston-Salem and Greensboro. So, in fact, the videos we saw was actually it looked like almost about a half an inch there. So
yeah, it was coming down pretty good at similar rates that it was up here that we saw at times when it started to taper off. So, a decent snowfall event for not just the mountains in western North Carolina, but also parts of the Piedmont. And I believe that US 64 corridor along and north of that probably had the best chance of and see some flakes today.
Yeah, we were watching those MPing reports too, and we saw like some snow reports from like the Charlotte area and then up towards Lake Norman.
A few flurries, yeah.
I'll talk about Charlotte in a moment.
It was fun. It was fun to see the reports. I'm not sure, how much validity they are to those.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. Let me show a couple more cameras here, guys, because there were some areas that maybe were a little disappointed. Now, Asheville did see snow. You can still see some of that frozen precipitation kind of on the lens here as the camera turns at the Bumpkin County Courthouse. It is beginning to melt, but again, as we talked about last night, this is one of those areas that's in a valley, so the mountains around this valley certainly did better than the actual downtown. But, there's no snow visible right now as we look into the city of Marion. So that was an area that's more or less along that I-40 corridor that didn't really get snow. But certainly places like Boone did really well. And the fact that we did see it into places like Greensboro, like Winston-Salem, and still falling at this hour in Raleigh, I think makes it a pretty successful first snowfall event of 2022. Let's take a look at some of your comments that are coming in right now, and then we'll show you the map of preliminary snowfall totals. Jason said that he doesn't have any snow to report, Scotty, in Burke County and Morganton. And Krista tells us in Chapin, South Carolina, she didn't have snow, but she had those gusty winds of 40 miles an hour. And I feel like that's kind of the other headline that a lot of people saw overnight. If you didn't get the snow, then you got a lot of the wind. As we take a look at the reports that came in during the overnight hours, you can kind of tell this is a storm with a couple of different stories to it. So those purple numbers up along the Blue Ridge, but also down into the Triad and coming maybe soon to portions of the Triangle. Those are the snow reports that are preliminarily reported to the National Weather Service. So we have 2.5 inches here as you make your way out towards Canton and western North Carolina, but also those wind reports, right? So MPING users reporting down trees, power lines, limbs, those sorts of things, as the wind was certainly gusting, trees uprooted in Skyland outside of Asheville. As we make our way into the higher elevations here, we got 2 inches outside of Spruce Pine, making our way into Blowing Rock. Wow, we got one report closer to downtown of 1 inch, but as you make your way higher up along that elevation, along the Blue Ridge Parkway, 6.5 inches here in portions of Watauga County. Up in Boone, where you guys are too, the terrain makes a big difference, and also the time that these measurements were taken. So 7.5 inches in Lowville, and then, up in Boone, another about 4.5 inches here, and as you make your way out of town, 7 inches. Now, is that what you guys are seeing? Did you really see about 7 inches of snow in Boone?
I would say right now,
I would say there are spots that got 7 inches, and I think something that plays a big role in that is who is measuring and where they're measuring it.
Right.
The wind had a big role in that, with blowing snow drifts and things like that. So the location of where somebody measured it may be a little bit different. I think on average, you could say 5 inches, 5 to 6 is more, probably a little more conservative and realistic. But there's no doubt that some locations got 7 inches.
There's a picture Evan and I took of ourselves here at the stadium, and there's a snowdrift that came up to my knees and mid thigh for our mid shin to Dylan. He's a little bit taller than I am, but he's got a good little snow mark over here on his jeans. So that's pretty impressive snowdrift, but it's a lot of wind up here too. So I know the wind really played into that.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about those winds, because even here in Charlotte, where I was woken up multiple times throughout the night because of gusty winds that were power enough to bring down small tree limbs, blowing some shingles down, making our way into Union County, North Carolina, multiple trees down on Lawyers Road and Unionville Indian Trail Road. We even had a COVID testing site operated by StarMed here in the Charlotte area, had their outdoor tents at their drive-through location damaged, and so that location is closed today, along with the StarMed locations in the higher elevations to the west. You can see in upstate South Carolina, as I scroll back up, trees uprooted here near Duncan overnight, and even the outline of what was once a flood warning for that upstate corridor of Greenville, Spartanburg along I-85. Where we had more snow to tell you about is where we saw those live pictures coming in earlier from Wake Forest University. And, an inch to half an inch, that is going to quickly melt off here as we go on through the day, but still kind of sticking in some places in that Triad, with winds magnitude 51 miles an hour observed during the overnight hours. Very, very windy indeed. Reedsville coming in with multiple trees down, strong winds. Several people on social media reporting that to the National Weather Service. And it's always helpful when the National Weather Service can hear from you, but also multiple people sending in the same report helps them kind of verify what it is they might be looking at. Take a look at all of these polygons across the triangle. We'll wait to see if we get any snow reports. Right now, the furthest to the east is this one outside of Hillsboro. Very wet, accumulating just a little bit here on the road. This one at about the noon hour. But the other story, of course, for Raleigh, in addition to the overnight severe thunderstorms with gusty winds that brought down trees in some areas where they're flooding. So you can see we had reports of flash flooding in Wake Forest, North Carolina here near Raleigh, with portions of this roadway, Highway 1, covered with water, and also the same thing here in Chapel Hill, Old Mansion Farm Road, impassable due to flash flooding. And that was kind of the other side of the storm, as we were looking at 3.5 inches of rain totaled up by 10:30 this morning associated with this storm that, again, produced snow, produced gusty winds, produced flash flooding, and overnight is responsible for one tornado warning in South Carolina, Bamberg and Orangeburg counties. We were on the air with you at about 3 a.m. watching for this tornado warning. We don't have any confirmation that a tornado itself was on the ground, but we do have storm reports that collaborate some damaging wind in the Orangeburg area. Highway Patrol reporting multiple trees down in Orangeburg County as this storm rolled on through. We did have that tornado watch that more or less was up last night for the southern portions of South Carolina, down here towards Beaufort and Hilton Head, where you can see a tree fell on a mobile home and displaced the occupants. So some folks really did get kind of the bad side of this storm. And then that tornado watch was extended from Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, Atlantic Beach, all throughout the Outer Banks, just expiring just shy of 12 noon today as the storm system really began to move on out, at least the strong part of it that was responsible for the warm, severe weather on the first side of it. And now we're still dealing with kind of the backside of this. But Dylan and Scotty, I mean, just take a look at all of this activity that was observed in the last 24 hours. It was a very, very impressive storm, and I see you guys are on the move now here as you are taking a look, and we'll show our viewers this here in just a moment as you guys are now moving about. I see you coming past App State here in Boone, and certainly we can see the wet conditions that are on the road. It's good to see that the road is visible, but it's very slick. So as temperatures are dropping very steadily across the region right now, we woke up to temperatures in the 40s here in Charlotte. Any sort of precipitation that did fall as rain could freeze in some spots that are still below freezing now or even later on tonight. So do keep that in mind if you'll be traveling
James,
about.
That's a great point for up here in the mountains, because there is a lot of melting already, at least on the roadways, not necessarily grassy surfaces, but these roads are really wet. And unless we get a lot of wind to dry it out, or the sun really just pops up and dries it out, there's going to definitely be some tricky spots up here in the mountains.
Some black
tomorrow.
ice for sure tomorrow morning, overnight tonight. We're at 27 degrees right now, according to Jeep's in-car thermometer reading. So we're still below freezing, but these cars are keeping everything mixed up and not allowing it to sit too long to refreeze. But I think tonight, when temperatures dip down a little bit more, and they're not in much activity on the road, I think we could definitely see some refreezing and icy slick spots up here in the mountains and foothills, definitely.
Yeah, that's going to be something for folks to be vigilant about. It'll be a shock to our systems. It's a shock to the vegetation that started to bloom as we were seeing that record-breaking warmth the last few days. I can tell you, I was shocked when I woke up this morning just how cold it was, because here in the Charlotte area, we were getting those gusty winds during the overnight hours. My trees in the backyard were swaying. We lost power briefly at least twice, but there was a loud banging sound, guys, and I was up walking around the house in the middle of the night trying to figure out what was banging around, and I walked into the garage, which, of course, isn't climate controlled, and just got hit with that 40-degree temperature. It was a bit of a shock to the system, considering that when I was last in there, it was 70 degrees last night. So
James,
certainly a shock.
I was going to show you these signs right here. You can see the snow is plastered against these road signs and the stoplights. You can see this fast food restaurant, the snow plastered to the sign. That's just because of how gusty the winds have been this morning.
Wind played a big role in it. We were out earlier at a park trying to get some footage and experience the conditions, and the wind was so strong, you almost had to turn your back to it. It was just wind chapping and really cold and painful on your face. It was blowing so hard. We estimate we probably had some gusts of 30 to 40 miles per hour, and the snow was caked on the northwest facing side of the trees from where the snow had been blown from the ground up onto the trees and stuck there by the wind. And we're seeing some of the same in town on signs and street lights and things like that. So wind definitely played a big role in this event with this very dynamic system, as you said, bringing multiple reports, various types of weathers to the Carolinas.
And now the sun coming out here, out my window in Charlotte. You can see it shining through my windows in such a way that lighting experts will notice my white balance is a little bit off because the sun is now just coming out from through the clouds. And so the sun is beginning to shine. We see some blue sky in your pictures as well, too, guys. I want to mention we got Will watching on Facebook. He says the sun is coming out where he is. And Will was watching with us a couple nights ago when we were watching for the potential of storms across the area. And he was one of the first to ask us, hey, I heard the possibility that we could get some snow at the coast on Monday. Is that possible? And I got to tell you, I kind of laughed a little when I asked the question on behalf of Will to Jared. But, looking now at what's on radar scope, depending on what you consider the coast, and certainly this would be the coast, so this technically would qualify as we look back here at live radar. If we can get all of this here along that I-95 corridor in North Carolina to get enough cold air back to it as it moves off to the east, and we got snow right on through in here, Kill Devil Hills, Southern Shores, Corolla, up into Virginia. If it snowed there, then yes, technically that would be snowing at the Carolina coast on Monday.
Very crazy dynamic system, and one that I think that I think a lot of Carolinians will remember January 3rd, 2022 for just such a dynamic weather day. I mean, I don't think we had one of these last year, or we had just a little bit of everything in the mix. So it's been a couple of years since we've seen something this dynamic for all of North and South Carolina.
It's Carolina weather in a nutshell, folks, right? We've got, tornado threat at the coast. We've got gusty winds and floods throughout the Piedmont, and we got snow up in the mountains. We got Luke watching from Catawba County coming in with 4 inches of rain. 4 inches of rain in Catawba County. And so that is kind of one of the other many headlines associated with this system. As we wrap up here on the special live edition at the 1 o'clock hour, I want to show you what the radar looks like now up along the Mid-Atlantic, because this snow is just going to be dumping along portions of New Jersey and Delaware and into Virginia and even the capital in Washington. This is the area where now the snow is really going to be coming down, and I'm sure you'll be seeing that in national headlines as we go on throughout the night, because you can just see all of the snow reports that are coming here throughout the Washington, D.C. area and the densely populated areas of the East Coast after bringing snow to Harrisonburg and Roanoke earlier in the day. So all in all, it looks like we got snow as far south as I-40 and all the way up to New Jersey. And I'll tell you guys, as I make my way back down here to look at your MPing reports coming in to us here at the Carolina Weather Group and elsewhere, we are still seeing that mixing layer just south of Raleigh, both detected by radar, but also, again, your ground truths. We can see that you're reporting to us Holly Springs, Apex, Cary, Middlesex. Folks are reporting snow. I think you guys touched on it earlier. Anyone can file an MPing report. That's great in terms of getting participation. It means that sometimes there's a little bit of a quality control issue with the MPing reports or with the way that people are measuring snow in their backyards. But when we can combine the radar, we combine the live camera that we were looking at earlier from Raleigh as we punch that back up here on the screen, I think it's safe to say that snow did fall, not accumulate thus far, in Raleigh. So it's a pretty wide-reaching first snowstorm of 2022. Closing thoughts from our snow chasers in Boone.
Had a good time. I think it was worth the drive. Glad we got to come out and do some coverage and follow the event. Glad we stayed safe, and we can put this Carolina weather event in the books.
Yeah, we're not. I'm not going to let this guy get back to Mississippi State for school. I mean, he's going to have to stay here now and be my snow chase partner. But no, it's been a blast being with Dylan, and we had a good time. Got to see some thunder snow. That was. I saw the possibility. We saw the possibility.
Yep.
And that's kind of was our
forecast
goal.
Verified. Yeah,
our goal was to experience that. Unfortunately, we didn't get any like Jim Cantori video, like he gets viral
jumping up and down.
The reaction. We didn't get the reaction on video.
We were in the car, but I'm sure if we would have been outside, we'd have been jumping up and down too. So.
Yes. It still counts.
That's right.
Well, thank you guys for your reports. Stay safe out there. Get some coffee and warm up, and we will check in with you again real soon. You can follow their
How did you know that's where we're
sitting in the parking lot right now.
Oh, I'll take a refill, please. Fine.
You got it.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dylan Hudler, Scotty Powell, live on the ground in Boone. Thank you so much. We'll continue to follow your activity throughout the day on Twitter. Here's what you can expect from us here at the Carolina Weather Group. Anytime we have live special coverage like this, you can watch it wherever it is you are watching right now on the Carolina Weather Group or our sister platforms of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, the whole pizzazz. But if you want more anytime, you can find us Carolina Weather Group on YouTube. We have two offerings for you today. We have our traditional offering, which is our Carolina Weather Net. It features real-time radar, sky cams, conditions, forecast, alongside the best of our weekly show. You can find that streaming right now on YouTube. You can watch it anywhere you can watch YouTube, from your smartphone to your smart TV. We're also running a special stream today called Where is the Snow? And we are continuing to monitor in real time those sky cams, those MPing reports, and the precipitation depiction based on radar to help you determine where it's snowing versus where it's raining. So two offerings for you on this January 3rd, 2022. Just check out the Carolina Weather Group on YouTube. We are scheduled to kick off our 2022 season on Wednesday with an all-new episode of the Carolina Weather Group. You can find that right here or in audio podcast form, wherever it is you get your audio podcast. Thanks so much for everybody who's participated in our broadcast today, letting us know the snow reports you've seen. We've taken a look at the preliminary snowfall numbers. We'll have updates for you on social media as we head on throughout the rest of the day. But for now, from Charlotte, I'm James Brierton. Stay safe out there. Remember to watch for that black ice. And we leave you now with a closing look once more at Boone, North Carolina, courtesy of Resort Camps.